still needing volunteers for 23 families and 34 children, but I know everybody is spreading the word about how rewarding and fulfilling this volunteer opportunity is, and y'all are able to talk to the people you know, and I'm sure you're being very selective about who you invite to come join our CASA family, and we really appreciate that. So, in the newsletter this week, I wrote about visitation. Visitation matters with our children, and in your role as a volunteer, one of your responsibilities is to observe parent-child visits. These are a wonderful opportunity for our parents to maintain that parent-child bond there, and to let the children know that even though they can't live together, they're still loved, they're missed, and to give them that opportunity to reassure them that everything is going to be okay. Sometimes parents go from being a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week parent, and they get in this process and they only get to parent like 1 hour or 2 hours a week. And it's really hard, and they're so overwhelmed with everything that's happening that they think, when I get to that visitation room, all I want to do is just hug my kids, and I don't want to do anything else, you know. And so the kids, you know how kids are, they can't sit still more than like 2 minutes and whatever, so they like to be active and doing things. So one of the things as a volunteer you can help with is to help the parents remember what it was like at their house and what kind of activities did y'all do together as a family. And then they can ask the children too when they're visiting, what kind of activities did y'all used to do with your parents? Y'all had fun, good memories with, and things like that. And then as the volunteer, you can get with your supervisor or come by the office and see me, and we can make a little visitation bag for them. You can give that bag to the parent at the beginning of a visit and say, you know, your kids said that they really like to do Legos and they like to draw. So I've thrown a couple packages of age-appropriate Legos in here and some drawing paper and some markers and things like that. And let's see what kind of a visit that you can have, because the whole point behind this visit is for them to enjoy each other's company and to build new memories for the future. So we want to make that as pleasant as possible. Some other things you might do is talk to the kids and ask them about their favorite healthy snacks, and put a little note in that visitation bag that says, if you remember, your child likes, I don't know, apple slices and peanut butter, or whatever it is, and you might want to bring that. After the visitation or the next time you see the parents, you can encourage them. Say, you know, I watched that at visitation, and the children were so much calmer, and y'all seem to enjoy it so much better together. What kind of activities are you going to pack in the bag for next time? And put it on back to the parent. And that way you can see how much they're learning. They're learning from you, they're learning from parenting, they're learning from counseling and everything that they're participating in. And to help them be better parents for that 1 or 2 hours a week, and hopefully get that time increased, and it just reaffirms to the parents that you were supporting them and their to be able to get their kids back, and you want it to be a positive experience for both the parents and for the children that you're advocating for. So let's work together to let everybody know visitation matters, and that's the way we can support them. If y'all have any questions or anything like that, you know where to find me at the office. I'm always there, and would love to help you pack a visitation bag. So, who's next?
I forgot to mention just a second ago that our volunteer spotlight this month is Jennifer Ferris. Anybody here had an opportunity to meet Jennifer? She's one of our board members. She's our treasurer. If you haven't had the opportunity to meet her, she is so much fun. And you guys know I just recently moved to Victoria. I don't have a lot of friends. And I'm telling you, the board has been awesome for Golden Crescent CASA in the interim of getting new leadership. Every one of them have stepped up in such a huge capacity. I've worked with many boards, and this one is just so impressive, and we're very, very lucky and blessed to have them. And I've gotten an opportunity to know a few of them really, really well, and Jennifer is one of them. So this is her picture. She has taken on the role of handling all of the finances and bookkeeping portion of running the agency right now while there is an interim leadership. And you guys know that counting those dollars and pulling them from the right area and putting them in the right spot is really a very challenging and difficult job, and she's just awesome at it. I mean, like chef's kiss, she's amazing, don't you think? And we email in the middle of the night. It'll be 4 or 5 in the morning, and we're emailing or texting. I mean, she's really put in so many hours, and she's a volunteer, guys. So I just wanted to recognize, you know, all of the board that for stepping up during this time, that we're spotlighting Jennifer, and she wasn't able to be here today, but I wanted Tracy to have an opportunity to kind of brag on her as well.
Gosh, I don't know what I can add to that. Jennifer, of course, she works full-time at Baumgardner Morrison, and it's tax season, and she stays very, very busy. And somehow, she always makes time to make sure that CASA's needs are met, that our questions are met, that our questions are answered. I don't know how she does it, but we just really appreciate her. I don't think we've ever spotlighted a board member before. She is a volunteer, and she's gone above and beyond like many of you do. So, Jennifer, if you're watching, thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And one more little thing I wanted to go over with you guys really, really quickly. If I can get y'all to kind of turn to the back a little bit. And on your table, there should be some construction paper. If you'll grab a piece. Okay, does everybody have, anybody need one? Okay, so in the spirit of Valentine's Day, I wanted to just do a quick little activity. First of all, you know, we're transforming our vocabulary when it comes to child welfare reform system, and of course, we're including that in our work as a CASA family. Because we know that CASA volunteers, they're going to amplify a child's voice in court. You know, the old way of thinking is CASA is the child's voice. You know, the pendulum has swung, and we know that we are enhancing the child's voice. We're not their voice, they have their own voice. You know, we're not eyes and ears like spies, which was the old way of thinking. We're actually just there to provide valuable information and advocacy, information to the judge on the child's behalf, but they are their own voice. And another thing unique about CASA right now is that we are incorporating family intervention. You know, that's new for us. It used to be just very child-focused, and over the last couple of years, that pendulum has swung where we're including families. That's working with the mother and the father and maybe some extended family. And it's real easy. It's real easy to be, it's almost human nature to be angry at them or mad at them. We've read an affidavit on what their child might have gone through that ended up in their foster care intervention. And we can be a little upset about that. We might even have our own biases and judgments, right, that we haven't really come to terms with. And we need to be aware of those. And when we're going to go see a mom or a dad or make an appointment with them, we're going to have to really know who we are and what our feelings are, and if we do have any judgments, and kind of check them before we walk in the door and have those interventions to provide that support. Does that make sense? So what I'd like for you to do, in the honor of Valentine's Day, is if you'll fold your paper hamburger style, and then what I want you to do is just cut out, freehand it, nothing fancy, and cut out a heart. Just cut out a heart. Did everybody cut one out? Hopefully mine doesn't look like fallopian tubes like it did last time. So cut your heart out. Okay, does everybody have their heart? Okay. Yes, yeah. Okay, perfect, just the way it is. Okay, so we have our heart. So let's think about some of the things that have affected this. Let's pretend we're working with a mom. And let's think about some judgments, some prejudgments, some biases we may have, or some things this mother may face or be scared of, have gone through by other maybe support systems she should have that may have failed her because they didn't check their own biases. What are some things like that you guys can think of? And I have some hints here. This is the part that we're trying to change our way of thinking and utilize some of the more positive interventions. Here are some examples. What about, go ahead. Anybody? What about, first of all, just judging in general? Just being judgmental. We really have to kind of not judge, right? One of the quotes that's so beautiful that I wrote up here is, the kids you say you love, their parents were those kids. As change agents, the big change is growth and healing around the adults. If we care about the kids, we've got to care about their parents. Research is showing that that is true. So if we're judging this parent and we're thinking, she's a drunk, she's not going to change. She's had 3 interventions, 4 interventions, she's never going to change. Those are judgments that we're walking in the door with. Does that feel like, if you're walking in the door, or someone's walking in the door to talk to you, and they have that judgment, do you feel hope? Or do you feel judged? Because you can feel that from somebody when they're sitting across from you, right? So let's start to wrinkle the page as things are thrown out there. Wrinkle the heart as things are thrown out there that are harsh. So judgment. Mom's an alcoholic. She's white trash. She's lazy. You know, all those types of things that we may be thinking and not saying, or maybe we actually say them because we have parents that tell us that their providers or their support system say those things to them. So when you guys are walking in as CASA, you've got to make sure that you're not participating in that, because they've already gone through this many, many times. They don't have their children right now. This is where their heart is. So our goal is to be non-judgmental. We want to be non-judgmental. We want to make sure that we're offering support and maybe hope in a way that they've never had. Maybe they don't even have hope for themselves. But by providing that support, that hope, those resources, all of those types of positive interventions for somebody who we've been told for a long time, they're never going to change. And we believe that because the state did believe that for a long time. The state did believe, remove a child, put them in foster placement, find permanency for them, but do not let them go back home. You know, if you've been in this system long enough, you know that that was the way that the system worked. But you know that that doesn't work. So we have to play a role in helping to heal that heart, to give them hope, to give them something, and don't identify them by their bad choices, their bad habits, by their intervention. They're a mom, or a dad, or a grandma. They're a person. It's that person-centered vocabulary. And you know, what's very difficult about this is even if I go get an iron, and I iron this piece of paper, it's always going to have those wrinkles. And those wrinkles are what we talk about when we talk about being trauma-informed. It's understanding that every one of these little scars is part of their history and their trauma. And it's our job to help as much as we can, and not to make it worse for them, but to help them heal and get through it so that they can be there for their children and be appropriate. Does that make sense? So this is just a fun activity. You can actually do this with your children, with your, if you're in the training situation, if you're working with a parent, you can use this type of an activity to kind of help them, especially when they're really harsh on themselves. You can kind of show them how that self-talk is really difficult and hard. So anyway, anybody have any questions about that? Thanks for giving me a few minutes for that. And I think, are we ready to move to training, or are we going to are we going to eat? Time to eat. Okay, so help yourselves, everybody.
And we have our speakers today from Hope of South Texas, and they're going to be speaking about advocacy, trauma, and this is Brashad and this is Meagan Gumm.
Thank y'all so much for inviting us here. We are, whenever we get an opportunity to talk with, especially fellow, just people in this field, volunteers, professionals, it's always something that's, that we're very passionate about and dear to our heart. This can be a really, it can be really difficult to just, she was talking about crinkling of the heart, and that's one of the activities that we do with our kids. But usually what happens, I kind of talk a little bit about the history and the referral process, and then Brashad will talk about like the education, because one of the research shows the best prevention of child abuse is education. And so our goal is to try to reach out to agencies, schools, anyone working with kids on recognizing signs of abuse, what to do if a child discloses, how to report, and so those are some of the things that we offer to the community. Children's advocacy centers, there's over 70 in the state of Texas, and before the CAC model came into Texas, the investigative process for child crimes was pretty, not very trauma informed. The child would be encouraged to retell their story over and over and over again to different officials in a not child-friendly environment. And that can be really, it can re-traumatize a child. And there was a case up north where multiple reports had been made, and for 6 months this child wasn't reported missing. Referrals had been made to CPS and law enforcement, and those agencies hadn't coordinated with each other. So the supervisors of these agencies, in a small town, they were just heartbroken. So they got together and they pushed to bring what we call the multidisciplinary team approach to child crime investigations. So what the CAC model does is we coordinate those investigations. We receive every report that goes through CPS of suspicion of abuse. If it meets criteria for our case to receive CAC services, which is usually like child sexual abuse, child physical abuse, we are coordinating with the investigators on that case so that that child can be brought into one center, child-friendly, where a forensic interviewer is trained to interview a child, help them feel safe to disclose. Because what we know is that if they're scared, if they're not ready to talk, if somebody's pushing them, the likelihood of them disclosing isn't going to happen. And so with that, this is kind of how the CAC model was started. So you brought it here. So like I said, we get referrals, so our forensic interviewer is scheduled. So we contact law enforcement and CPS. They come to our center. They have to be present and observe the interview. And the interviewer will come in and out with the investigators to help guide if they had any further questions that they want them to talk more about. Then the children and their families qualify for free trauma-focused therapy, which is really important. And I feel like some of this is kind of where the volunteers, because research shows that if there is one person, at least one person in this child's life where they feel loved, supported, believed, that the ability to heal and to be resilient and get back into their feet and their light turned back on from going through some awful experiences. And so that's where I see kind of with the volunteers. And so I just want to thank you guys for what you do, because it's a noble job to hear the stories that we hear. And so the trauma-focused therapy services are evidence-based. They usually last 3 to 6 months, and the supportive caregiver is a requirement that they must participate, because that's how we're able to begin that healing process. And we follow this case all the way up to the judicial process, because that's really overwhelming as well. And so we work with the families and the district attorney's office to help prepare if the children have to testify. And so we're also a support for that. Any questions kind of about the history piece?
Where are you located? What area do you serve?
Thank you. Okay, our physical office is here in Victoria. It's right next door to where the old food bank used to be. Are y'all familiar with that? It's kind of hard to explain. The old food bank used to be. It was Platinum.
It's off of Del Mar and Rio Grande?
Yes. And we provide services to Goliad, Victoria, and Jackson counties. What is unique and why we are able to provide free therapy is because of part of it is the VOCA grant, so victims of crime. So our referrals come through either law enforcement or CPS. Yeah. Any other questions or? about the history or, you know, and just going back kind of to the founders of this, they had the foresight to see the benefits when agencies communicate. So every month we review cases on a monthly basis. We review the case, where are they in the process? And they were able to get it into Texas law. So it is a requirement by CPS and law enforcement that if it's like a priority one, sexual abuse, physical abuse, that case needs to be CAC'd so that family can receive all of those services. So Brashad, I'll let you take over. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Megan, especially explaining the CAC model. The model itself is a lot of appendages, but she breaks it down so much easier. It is understandable the way she does it. Before I jump into what Hope of South Texas does, I'd love to give and pay homage to Drs. George and Ruth Constant. I think it's really important in all aspects of life that we keep a reminder of where we come from and whose shoulders we stand on. No matter what advocacy group you do, you work with, there was someone that did the work prior to you, that gave a foundation and support and instilled some values and core beliefs into your organization and the work that you do. Dr. George and Ruth Constant founded Hope of South Texas in 1986, and it was an agency that focused on suicide crisis and sexual assault. And they gave crime services and educational programs. And then in 2002, that's when Hope of South Texas altered our program, moving away from suicide crisis intervention simply because funding changed at that time, and focused more on what we do today, which is the education pieces, you know, the forensic interviewing, family advocacy. And it's because of their vision, what they saw was needed in this area, in addition to suicide prevention, that we're here today. And so I think it's very important that I remind everyone where we started from and these wonderful people that gave us this opportunity. What services are provided at Hope CAC? Meagan kind of went into details with some of those, and all I'm going to do is just kind of expand more information about what the services are, and then we'll have room for some questions. All services are offered to families free of charge. We do forensic interviewing, family advocacy, mental health counseling 3 to 17, and education and outreach. Forensic interviews. A forensic interview is a structured conversation with a child intended to elicit detailed information. I'll let you guys read the slides. You'll notice I don't read slides verbatim because I know we all can read. With that being said, the thing that's really interesting about the forensic interview that I learned when I came to work for the CAC is the location. As Meagan said before, children were taken to these police stations to have these interviews. I actually had the opportunity with Meagan to meet with a former special investigator who talks about the change in the response that they receive for children in interviews when they move from going to these jails, you know, these places that's scary. If you've ever been to a jail, whether it's for visitation or your own experience personally, or whatever the case may be, it's not a friendly environment for us. So think of a child going into this environment with these cold walls, locks, and hearing doors closed. It's not a place that if I was a child and going through something very traumatic that I would be open to sharing this information with you. The CAC, if you've ever been to our CAC, and please feel free to come by and see us. We'd love to take people on tours. Once you walk into the doors of our offices, there's color everywhere. Our walls are filled with different shapes. The funny thing is they're actually soundproofing mechanisms so that our therapists and interviews are still held confidentially, but it's just bright. And so the kids just see colors and hearts, a very open and warm environment. We have toys everywhere. Pictures of happy children. It's very important that we instill into these children that this is a safe environment. So when they come in, they're not feeling interrogated, but instead I'm just having a conversation with someone that needs some information to assist me. And the forensic interviews are trained. There's a specific way that they ask questions, and the model that they follow, so those children don't feel interrogated, and they're more open. A lot of things that happen in investigation, we forget to ask questions, and that's everything, right? I love to use my experience as a CPS worker just to kind of build on what we talk about. I would forget to ask questions sometimes. It happens. It happens to the best of us no matter what your position is. The model that the forensic interviewers do, they move step by step through sexual abuse, physical abuse, trafficking. There's specific questions in I guess, I don't want to say, it's not triggers, or prompts that makes them remember, I need to ask about this, and also how to follow those prompts. And as she said, they're being watched. The video, there's an interview in process, they're being watched by local police and CPS. So they're watching this interview process happen, and then they may have questions. So they'll step out, hey, can you get them to talk more about this? Cool, and we'll go back in, and they'll have that conversation. But all of that happens in a very safe and warming environment where children are more likely to disclose the information needed to make sure their child welfare is intact. Family advocacy. Our family advocacy group is awesome. During the interview, they're with the family. There's other siblings that are there, or if it's a multiple sibling case where different children need to be interviewed, someone sits with those kids. They color, they play games. They have, our newest waiting room for children is huge. It's huge, and kids run all through, they play. Before we came today, there was a family there, and I was listening to them yell. There is a joy that comes from hearing children play. I think about this being outside. I don't hear children play as much as when I was younger, or when you were all younger, outside, riding bikes, and the giggling and laughing. There's a joy that comes with that. That's one of the things I love about working at our CAC is listening to the kids in the waiting room. They get rowdy sometimes. I will not joke with you. They will throw things, turn things over, but it's hilarious to us because that's that kid being able to be a kid. You know, we don't discourage them, hey, you know, don't climb on the sofa. Let's try this instead. But be a kid, you know, enjoy this because that's what kids do. Our family advocacy team is really good at that. Not only do they work with their children while they're there, after the interview itself, we follow up with them, hey, how are you doing? Everything okay? Is there anything you need? Sometimes our parents, as we mentioned earlier, get judged a lot. And there are things that parents need that they have no way to ask someone for. Our family advocacy can bring that out. Hey, are you needing something? And if so, they can provide them to, you know, shelters, clothing closets, pantries, our rainbow room. We have things for children and their families. Simple things that we take for granted, hygiene. You know, toothpaste, shampoo, body wash. They may be afraid to ask that question to anyone else, but our family advocacy works with them. Is there anything you need? What can I help you with? And there's an opportunity there to also assist that parent on being a better parent to ensure better outcomes for the children. Mental health services, all of our therapists are clinically trained and they follow evidence-based trauma-informed care, as Meagan said. There are different interventions they use, but TFCBT is one of the biggest ones. I think that CFTSI might be moving more forward in the future just because of the way that it works and the intervention itself. I see a lot of push in that when we talk about it. Our therapists are all being trained in that as well. And so that's one of the biggest things when it comes to our clinicians is they are specifically trained to address trauma. Sometimes there are people like, oh, I go see a therapist here. That's fine. But if you're going to see a therapist who's not trained in trauma-specific care, you're not really getting the care you need. Thank you. And one of the things that I talk about when we talk about trauma, I always use young boys, but we know young men and women are victims of child abuse and sexual abuse and things of that nature. But one of the questions I always ask is you have a young boy, and we call it Peter Pan syndrome in my family, men who don't grow up to be men. A lot of those men have trauma. And when you don't address those traumas, what happens to those men? They marry your daughters. And that's that generational cycle of abuse and things that happens that we can prevent by nicking trauma when we can. Addressing the trauma, helping them heal through trauma, both boys and girls, creates a better childhood. It creates a better adulthood, creates better parents. Those better parents create better children. Those better children and parents create better communities. And that's our goal with ending child abuse, sexual assault, and providing healing, the trauma that ensues to that. All of that is done through our mental health and clinical services. Education services. My favorite part is that's me. Education, as Meagan said, has been, studies show that education is the biggest prevention tool when it comes to stopping child abuse. Education is big at anything. No matter, if you look at any crisis that we have. My background before this was public health. We went out to do information about HIV, STIs, and colorectal cancer. There were people who simply didn't know some of these things existed. But as they got more information about it, they knew how to protect themselves. I moved that from the health, public health model to the CAC model, MDT. All of those things are educators. I go out and I explain how those things work, and then you's like, oh, I didn't know you did that. Tell me more about this. What services can I do? One of the biggest things that we do education on is recognizing and preventing child abuse. It's simply put, there are people who just don't know what it looks like. If I see something, is that awkward? See something, say something, no matter what. So education is very, very big, especially that and community outreach, because it gives us the opportunity for people who aren't in the field, who don't have formal training, who don't work with children every day, to know that, I want to empower you to know that you have to do a report. If you see something, you must say something, right? That's where people get scared. So when we educate them about child abuse, what it looks like, how to protect themselves and their children from it, it gives them this empowerment that I may not be a professional, but I do know that if this happens, or if I see something that looks like this, I need to say something. With that being said, more people will make a report. I hear all the time, or after this, when I present this in certain places, this one time I saw this and I didn't know. Okay, I had a mentor once that gave me this example and I used it for everything. And she says, you know what, if you have something in your gut that feels some type of way, do something about it. Even if it's just gas. Even if it's just gas, do something about it. Because that feeling in your gut is your body's response to telling you something isn't right. Something isn't right. And so we pushed that with our education model. Even kids, young kids, we used to, when I was a kid, it was stranger danger, right? That's not effective at all. We know 90% of abusers are known by their victims. So I do a training, we do play it safe. One of my favorite things to do is a very simple task. I have kids come up and we say, stop, go, tell. Sounds real simple, right? Stop, go, tell could save a life. You say stop. If there's an adult or someone that you don't trust making you feel any type of way, it doesn't even have to be a touch. It could be a look. Hey, stop that. You go away, and you tell someone. One of the first things that we ask is, do you have a trusting adult in your life? I'm always afraid to ask that question in outreach because I'll be at a health fair. We were at the library for the summer reading kickoff, and you guys were there. I think we were in the next booth over, and I asked the kid, do you have a trusting adult? They were like, yes. I said, oh, who is this here with you? This is my mom. Okay, who's your trusting adult? My dad. Okay. Interesting enough. This trusting adult, we ask, if you're a trusting adult, can you tell them anything? Will they make you feel safe, and will they protect you? So when I get an adult name that isn't the parent that's with them, I'm always like, oh, I don't want to ask too many questions, but so tell me more about this adult. Say, oh, how's mom? Oh, mom too. Okay, good. Maybe they just have a stronger relationship with that parent. But I'm going to ask because my gut tells me, make sure. During these times, we also have opportunities for outcry. Believe it or not, there are children when we go into schools, they'll come tell us, someone's done this. So I have to come back to the office, I'll let the therapist know, and we go through the process. As we know, everyone in Texas is a mandated reporter. So if they disclose something to me that needs to be reported, of course we make that referral, we make the call. However, sometimes kids will just flat out say their disclosure is something's going on, and they won't expand on that. So, hey, I'm gonna call a therapist. Can you maybe do an education session? We'll bring them in, talk to them, and if need be, they'll get reported also. A lot of times what we do is, if I leave the school, hey, this kid came up to me and something, it didn't seem okay, can you follow them for a little bit? Yeah. And they'll reach out, the school will call me, oh, it was just this. That makes you feel better. It's really hard to leave those education and outreach moments knowing that something could be going on and you didn't do anything. So I always tell someone something, and then we have that moment, hey, this is a great opportunity. Maybe your staff needs some education on recognizing and reporting child abuse. Education is that tool piece there. Because while I felt something there and I couldn't do anything at that moment, by providing that education, the school, who has the responsibility to report, now can further look into some other issues that may have gone on. There are kids that walk around school every day. We always tell people, a smile hides a lot, right? There are children that are going through things, and if someone doesn't recognize what the smile is hiding, it continues to happen. So that education piece is very, very important because it's an empowering piece that gives everyone in the community, everyone in this church, in your family, everyone has that opportunity to be empowered to do what's right. Sometimes, as I said, we don't know to do what's right because we don't know. Education fixes that. And so education and outreach is the last component of our services. We also do SANE and court accompaniments. The SANE exam is our sexual assault nurse examination. If a child makes a sexual assault outcry, they have a SANE exam. Our family advocates and other people who are trained in sexual assault accompany that family. So when the children do go for this exam, they're not there by themselves. The perpetrators usually aren't the ones who are supposed to bring them, but sometimes you don't know who's who. The child may not make an outcry till later about that, but even in that moment, it is a sexual assault examination. It is scary. And so we're there to hold hands. We hand out teddy bears. We have blankets. We do things to put this child at ease because there is trauma. I have done a few accompaniments myself. Just having to show your body after you have been traumatized, it's hurtful. It is hard for a child to do. So we go there to ease them. Families are also upset, so we're easing that family at that time also. We do court accompaniments. Our clients, which I think is victorious, face their offenders in court. I don't know if you guys have ever been to court for anything, well, you have been for CASA. Think about your cases when your children have to go to court that are of age and they have to see their parent. One of the things I remember in CPS, we would talk about, at the end of the day, that's still their parent. So that child has love for this person. And now I have to come up here and talk about how bad you treated me. Even though I love you, I have to go against you. That is hurtful. It is hard. I've watched kids break down because I have to tell what mom and dad or so-and-so did, even though I love them. It's the same way with court with us. Only difference is this is usually, it is a criminal case. It has been found that these things that happen, and they're usually very, very, very detailed testimonies and stories given. The child is scared. That whole experience is nerve-wracking. We sit behind them. We let them know that there are other people here just with you and your family supporting you in your story. You tell your truth, and we will provide the healing that you need once we leave. We assist with victims' crime compensation, the paperwork, of course. Any application can be a little difficult and intimidating, so we make sure that our families do have someone to assist them with the paperwork. Fundraising and attending events and putting on events. If you don't know, I will remind you, one of our biggest fundraisers of the year is Purse Bingo. Purse Bingo is our biggest fundraiser. There's about 600 eager people, mostly ladies, coming to win these very expensive purses for bingo. It is a good time. This past year was the first one that I actually got to attend and help with organizing. And there is adrenaline. I don't know if it's because I work there or what, but there is just this adrenaline rush listening to people play bingos fiercely, buying extra boards to win these expensive purses, but it's all for a good cause. All those funds go directly back to the services that we provide to our children and families. And Child Abuse Awareness Month is in April. Those are a lot of big events and things that we do. This year we'll be having Darkness to Light, which is a nationally accredited recognizing and reporting child abuse program. And so that's me putting in my tidbit. You have probably received emails. If you haven't, you will. That we'll be having this training that's free and open to the public. And of course we have our Rainbow Room. Our Rainbow Room, as I mentioned earlier, is just a place where our clients can come if they need toiletry items. We do have some clothing, pillows, razors, things of that, just everyday things that they may need.
Do you all accept donations for clothing?
We do accept donations for clothing. I always ask that they be new or very, very, very lightly used. Any other questions regarding our services?
What is your collaboration between your organization and CASA? So you touched on a few things that kind of hit mental health being one for children, and then two, your educational services. So is that like a referral or
Yes, so
how does that work?
all of our children, our clients and families are referred to us directly by CPS or local law enforcement. While our services are free of charge, there has to either be a case number or an open CPS case, or I think even prior CPS cases, correct?
Okay. Because what I was thinking is that Lynn and I were just talking was in regards to mental health, of course, she informed me to go through Midcoast. Some family members don't have insurance, or if they do have insurance, they're kind of treated, I guess, or put in
Jennifer definitely, if they're using, if CASA is involved, they have a CPS case. So if a client of yours needs trauma-focused mental health, that's where we come in. We never step on toes. I believe in staying in our lane. Domestic violence is Midcoast's big thing, and so that's usually why it's directly the first thought of, because of a lot of our cases, domestic violence is what's involved. But any child with a CPS case can receive services at Hopeless Health Texas.
How soon after a child reports an incident are they interviewed?
So that varies. Our goal is as soon as possible, which is why we have this CAC model. As she said before, outcries were made and they kind of fell through the cracks. Right now, basically what we do is we're the moderator that holds everyone accountable. CPS now knows this has been made. Law enforcement knows that this has been made. An interview needs to be scheduled. If we see there's a lag time, we'll reach out to them. Hey, when are we scheduling this interview? And we get it on the books.
A week, a month? It just seemed like it would be difficult to get everybody scheduled at the same time so that they're not going to repeat it over and over.
They did pretty good. Usually they do reach out to us and they schedule, and then we help coordinate. They usually do a good job with it.
So typically just normal business hours, weekend.
If there's an emergency and we need to do it, if we're over 24 hours, but we're emergency, so we've had situations where CPS had to go in, they remove, and we needed to do an FI immediately, so.
So is it a requirement for CPS to call on you guys if there's anything like a child abuse or
If there's an interview needed, yes. All interviews are done.
by you? The CPS doesn't.
Is it a
You're-
requirement, though, them or law enforcement?
It's CPS, but there's priority, so, so maybe there is, the report was physical abuse,
Mhm.
but there wasn't marks that they may go into the field and they may do their response.
Oh,
But if it is a sexual abuse, for sure sexual abuse, and a report made by a professional reporter, those should be coming through the CAC. But there are other things like neglect, things like that. CPS sometimes will still bring them in, especially if they've been getting quite a few calls, they'll bring them in, instead of going in and talking to them themselves. Can I just throw one more thing with the saying? I think there's a lot of myths too with the saying, but it's also something that can be really reassuring to children. A lot of times kids may feel there's something wrong with their body, and being able to talk to a medical professional, they usually get a lot of, detailed outcry that maybe we weren't able to get in the forensic interview, and that nurse is able to testify what was said to them in that medical exam. It could just be a very reassuring, you're okay, I checked you out, and getting that information can be really helpful to the child and to the families.
Are the same nurses specialized, like adults and children
Yes,
versus children?
yes.
Okay.
Leslie Callis, Bodette, Barbarousse.
Yes.
And so that's been a really limited resource in our community because they work full-time jobs and they do that outside of their work hours. But they're starting a new program at Citizens where a group of nurses, maybe that work emergency room, they are being trained where, like you're saying, specialized in sexual and assault nurse exams. They're using like a telehealth, and that other person is helping them, because before, if no one was there, they were having to drive to San Antonio or Corpus, and that's a very long night for those families.
It's also we keep part of education and community outreach is keeping up to date with different laws and legislation that's been passed. So the biggest thing that we've gone through recently is informing them about House Bill, I'm gonna get these numbers backwards, hopefully I get it right. House Bill 60, which made it, and you can no longer make anonymous CPS reports. Those are things that we get out to the community. House Bill 730, which is letting families know that they have rights when speaking to CPS unless there's imminent danger involved. But all of those things, our communities don't know them. People don't know them. Even professionals sometimes aren't up to date, and so that's when an education comes in and, hey, have you heard the updates on this bill? You know, have you seen the new requirements for this? Getting that information out there as well.
So, back up for a step, you said there's no button for anonymous.
Correct. So now when you make a CPS report, you do have to give a name and contact information. And CPS reports are anonymous, are confidential. However, sometimes it gets out. It could be through court, it could be through hearsay. There are different ways where that information gets out. The state of Texas isn't pushing your name out there and say, hey, such and such called us and said you did this. But that's a possibility. Unfortunately, that does make some people a little suspicious or weary. But it's giving them that education that it is confidential. And at the same time, what you tell someone could save the life of a child. And if you don't tell them that, that could leave you responsible if you knew something and did not say something.
I've been curious after seeing that law passed. Did you guys see a decrease in reporting?
I don't think so. I've heard from different people that they have a little bit more so with the newest bill with reading of rights. And I just think that's just, it's how you approach the situation, you know. Everyone has the right to know anything that's happening to them. So we can't say, well, because they're reading them their rights now, they're now afraid to do what's correct. I mean, so we'll know if they've always had these rights, you just have to inform them of such before you speak to them. And so again, I think that's how the information is presented. If it's presented in a forceful way that will deter people, if you go in there with this mindset is, I'm gonna upset them when I tell them this, then you are, and they are gonna withhold information unless it's court ordered or whatnot. But if you go to them and let them know these are your rights as a parent, as a family member, and why it's important that we have this discussion and what this could bring to us and how this helps your child, I think it can actually increase the amount of participation we have versus hindering what we do currently.
When was this bill done?
I think the last 730 went at the beginning of this year, maybe?
I think it took effect January 1st.
January 1st.
Well, because I think that it's gonna take time for that to sink in to people. I tell you, it can't be like,
So
tell me whatever.
House Bill 60, the anonymous one in September.
Yeah, well, it's gonna keep them, now they're gonna start second guessing us. But now they don't wanna get involved, or they're not sure, until they can see it in action. So a lot of people don't want to be the first ones to get into that, because they're so unsure. Or you tell me this, but like, if I have an experience that's counteractive to that, then I'm not gonna do that no more. So, if I know somebody, and y'all tell me I gotta do this, I'm gonna tell them, no, don't do that because you gotta do this. So now, that's a reaction that we don't wanna have, you know? So, it's like, that's a coin flip both ways, you know?
I think
it's
with
good in it, but like I said, it's gonna take a long time for it to sink into the community where we can effectively see change in that. And I see that, we're gonna be patient, but we don't have time for that change, take as long as it do, because it's gonna affect more children, and those are gonna get lost in by the wayside, because I don't want you to tell them, because I don't want people to know that I said this, or I saw that. Now you tell me I got to be involved. That's the whole faction of a lot of people, is I don't want to be involved, you know, I'm scared, you know, of what the reaction is gonna be when people find out that I said this or I told. And that's one of the things about people who are being abused, they don't want to tell, because the shame of it, and then I don't want people to know that it was me, you know, so.
And a lot of times it's a family member, so.
Yeah.
I think, it was definitely a bill that we were fighting against because we didn't want to deter people from calling, so.
And that's gonna do with it, with a family member, they could tell another family member, you know, because it's gonna divide family, you know. No, it's not where you know, they say, you got a whole lot of drama in the family itself, you know.
Especially with families that already have a lot of drama.
And usually if it's in the family,
Yeah.
it's happening to more than one
Mhm.
in the family.
I think it's really important when we talk about that. It's kind of like when we discuss everything, even CPS. I remember they told us you can't do a tailor-made service plan. I'm sorry, you can't do a generic service plan. You know, everything doesn't affect everyone the same way. It's kind of with the laws. It's when we go in and when we get them, I have to explain it to this group of people differently than I explain it to this one. While the concept is still the same, I'm a black male. I know that I have had negative experiences with police. I know my family members have had negative experiences with police, CPS, and so forth. And so when I come and I discuss these things with you, I have to come with the mindset of, you know, I know you went through this, you know, I know this happened to you, so let's look at it this way. You know, if we don't do something about this, Eric's gonna continue getting beat up. Or Eric's gonna continue going through this trauma. It's making it personal. And that's what I found has been the only way, even working as a CPS worker. When I moved back, I'm from Edna. I lived in Dallas for 14 years. I moved back and I started seeing people that I went to school with. I started seeing people that I grew up with. And it was very difficult to have this conversation with you when your child has been removed. And here I am, who was your friend in high school, and I'm telling you, you have to do these services. But one of the things that I realized, if I came from a point of, I know you. I know what you're capable of, I know what you've been through, so let me talk to you from that. I know this and this happened, but right now, I'm trying to get your child home. For us, it's, I'm trying to keep your child protected. I know these things happen, and they shouldn't have. Because 9 times out of 10, they have gone through things and experiences that should not have happened. So there's this animosity already against authority, CPS, or the police department. So it's breaking it down from a position because I have intel that, look, this is what they can do. You know, this is how we work it, we get through it. It's, once again, making a tailor-made approach. Anyone reporting child abuse, it's gonna be hard. It's difficult. I've made several reports myself. I've reported people that I am very, very close with. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. One of the reports that I made was against my first cousin. But I had to do it because as a family, we've tried over and over to assist you, and our efforts are not working. You keep doing this, and I'm watching you hurt this child. And so it's giving them the mindset and empowering them through education and your personal experiences. This is why you gotta do this. It's not just because it's right, it's because if I don't and we don't, such and such is gonna fall by the wayside, or such and such is not gonna be here tomorrow. It's bringing those realistic moments in and having those conversations through a lens, and I think that's why any caseworker, any volunteer, having a personal relationship with your clients, it's easy to just be a volunteer. I'm a volunteer, but we know I've watched court cases, I watched CASA volunteers come in. You have relationships with these individuals. I was a caseworker. I would have them, well, call my CASA worker, or I'm not coming. Great, let me call your CASA worker, or you're not coming. It's because of the relationships that you have. Those relationships are so much more important than I think people realize. Because it's not just advocacy. You may be the only person that understands exactly what they're going through or any support system that they do have. And so those relationships, which is why we do presentations like this, because you have that effect on these parents and on these children.
Thank you.
I have a question real quick. Okay, so what if, let's say like a grandmother that doesn't want to lose, you know, the family, and they can't come to you for help or to educate or to try to, what do you recommend for
So
something?
education we can provide to anyone.
Yeah, so maybe if y'all have a group of parents, we can do parenting
Yes.
groups. We've been trying to find an opportunity, like, you know, because we presented some and people aren't showing up, so maybe, you know, we could work out something where we could do some kind of groups for parents or even for a group of kids or something like that.
We have a positive parenting group, and then we have a program that's 3 stages, but it goes through positive parenting, positive discipline. Those are great resources for those parents or grandparents who want to be better or want more information, or maybe they just, one of the things we talk about is generations, you know. Just because grandma and mom did it doesn't mean it's correct, you know. We know all children, and when it comes to discipline and punishment, that's a big difference, and I won't get into that because that's a whole training on the punishment versus discipline. But some people really don't understand that there is a difference between discipline and punishment is their discipline, and that's where these cases come up. We hear about these abuse cases that came from me disciplining my child, but it was punishment. And so it's giving them the information, the mindset to see that differently and how to respond to those situations that could prevent, physical abuse cases. And so yes, we definitely offer those type of courses.
Would you guys consider like a train-the-trainer type thing where if our volunteers sat with you and learned these parenting skills, these tools and knowledge, that they could then take on their one-on-one visits because now that they are engaging families? Would that be something that you guys can work out with them, where it's not the parent coming, but you're giving them the tools to use in their visits with the parents? Okay.
Because I just think that, there is, because I guess it's not really like a training, it's just in how, I guess, sharing the skills that would be, okay.
Absolutely, I think building on what we were talking about earlier about just using a trauma-informed approach with your parents versus being judgmental or angry at them, which we've seen some of that, so.
We have trauma-informed trainings that we could do with volunteers.
With our volunteers?
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Well, my information is listed on the next one, I believe.
Oh, sorry.
You're fine. You can feel free to email me or give me a call if you have any information.
That's awesome, yeah. Listening to your presentation right now, I see how much CAC has grown. My experience was in South Texas with CAC back in the 90s. And it's like all the services that you're offering and the connections, I mean, you've come a long way. And I think back to when I first started as an investigator, and the children and parents, I must have traumatized because we utilized the wrong interview techniques back then. And that's how we were trained.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've come so far
Yes.
as a system. Thank y'all very much for what y'all do.
And I think Texas really leads in this compared to other states that they really just embrace that CAC model and do a lot of training and services. Thank y'all for having us. Thank you guys for
Thank you for what you do.
Happy birthday. Well, that note, can we sing happy birthday for Miss Beverly?
Yes. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Miss Beverly. Happy birthday to you.
Also celebrating a birthday this month in February, we have Mary Kay Barker and Kelsey, who already ran out. Letitia, our staff member, and, of course, Miss Beverly. And we're also celebrating anniversaries, 1 year of Melissa Hernandez, I know you're here, and Teresa Snyder. 2 years, Victoria Valle. 4 years, Jeannie Molina and Jean Villarreal. And Dalton Service. 5 years, Amanda Wendell. 6 years, Marla Garlick, she's here. Woo! And 7 years, Bob Vincent. Woo! We could not do what we do every day without each and every one of you in this room. So we totally appreciate everything you do, your support, the kids, and even supporting each other.
Got to get a better camera.
One last thing. If you have been getting a pop-up on your CASA email that says you need to download that app and all these things like that, it is real and true for extra security for the CASA email. So if you have problems following the directions, Kelsey can help you. If it's on your phone, you can bring your phone up. If it's on your laptop, she can help you with that too. Or if you just get in the process and get in the middle of it, maybe you can call her for that extra support. But she did say to let you know that it is a true thing and she can help. So just call the office.
I wanted to also just kind of share that Diana and I are working on some workshops that we're going to be offering. And we're going to be offering them locally and in some of our other surrounding counties that we serve. And after hours and during the day. So she and I are in the curriculum planning stages of that, but we're gonna be rolling those out soon, and we wanna offer that as a resource for all of our volunteers. Also, if anybody has any questions, ever needs to visit with Diana or I, we're housed here at the same office at the One O'Connor building. And just, give us a call, come by, we'd love to visit with you if you have any questions for us. We know there's been some, questions about changes in leadership and things like that. We are absolutely transparent, feel free to give us a call.
Yes, the third Thursday of the month, Linda has peer-to-peer right across the street at the crossing. So if you have any questions about your role as an advocate, or you're stuck in whatever it is you need to do and you just want to talk to a fellow volunteer, she is actively working on 5 cases, and she is available.
And it is also her 5th year anniversary.
5th
year?
Yes,
Yes, 5 years.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Volunteer.
And one last thing, I know that everyone needs a night out. And so let me give you this night out. February the 20th at El Paso, tacos and tequila. It is Casa Give Back night. So whenever you go and you buy your meal, you take your secret somebody or your one and only or whoever you're taking with you. Whoever you're taking with you, buy a nice meal, have a good time, and a percentage of your ticket will go back to Casa. So,
And the license plates.
oh, license plate. Yes. So another great way to support Casa is to buy a Casa license plate for only $40. And it has the little decal on it, and it lets everybody know what a supporter you are of Casa. We get $11 from those license plates. And if you want to know what they look like, Miss Linda has one on her car.
I ordered mine.
So it's a private license plate.
Yearly charge.
It's $40 in addition to your annual charge that you normally pay for your registration. And it's in any of the 8 counties that we serve. If you buy it from one of those 8 counties, we get $11 from each of those sales.
Yes.
And then you can also, for a little bit more, make it a specialized license plate where you can put a saying or something on it.
Like Miss Linda Christina.
As long as it is. Yes, you tell them what you want.
Thank you to our presenters.
Thank you guys for having us, really appreciate it.
A lot of good information. Thank you.
So if y'all have any questions or anything, you know where our office is, give us a call. We'd love to see you anytime. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.